Okay, let's choose up. I'll take Jamal and Tutal. You can have Chubbs and Skippy. Let's go. My ball.
Okay. But you got skins.
Not a good negotiator? You don't have to be a good negotiator at McCarthy Chevrolet. McCarthy guarantees the lowest prices on a new Chevy or we'll pay you $10,000. We guarantee there's no need to shop anyplace else. McCarthy Chevrolet, I-35 and Santa Fe, Olathe.
You're listening to Track Talk with the RacinBoys, brought to you by McCarthy Chevrolet in Olathe, or visit them online at McCarthyChevyKC.com.
Welcome back to Sports Radio 810 WHB Track Talk on a Saturday morning. You're with the RacinBoys. Glad to have you along. Joining us right now is the president of Kansas Speedway, Pat Warren, who had a big week this weekend. Got some cars out on the racetrack earlier with a Goodyear tire test on Tuesday and Wednesday. Pat, how are you doing this morning? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. It's a wet morning, but things are good.
You got to like the wet weather to kind of green things up around the Speedway, though, don't you?
Yeah, I just feel bad. We've got a good guys event this weekend, and so this isn't helping them. It's good for our property, but not good for that event.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, this is Scott. We got to jump right into it this week. It seems like a lot of praises from the drivers. They really enjoyed the speed out there. We'll talk about that in a moment, but obviously we have to go to the biggest story of the week. Tire test was great. Cars were fast. Speeds were fast, but Dale Jr. had that tire failure on the right front. Can you take us through that and what happened out there for the people that weren't there?
Well, he was 25 laps into a 30-lap run. He was at the apex of 1 and 2, so right, at the sort of the middle of the corner. And from what he told us, and I think he told Goodyear, what he told me is that he didn't feel anything at all before, and then the tire just went. And so we don't have any more information right now about what happened or why it happened. So, he went up into the wall. He hit pretty hard, and then he sort of dragged along the wall from about the middle of the exit all the way in front of the casino. So it was a pretty good hit.
I don't think this is anything to be overly concerned about. I think some people back in the day, maybe a couple years ago, this might kind of freak out people. But I think Goodyear has proven in the last couple of years that they're able to figure this out and bring back a tire that's going to work well for the race. I don't think there's any reason to be concerned for this. I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, no, we're not I'm not concerned about it as it relates to the racing or anything else. My only concern at the time was the safety of the driver, Dale Jr.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was a hard hit. Unfortunately, he said it was a hard hit, but he was sore, but he was fine, and he was actually in a surprisingly good mood. Given that it basically ended his day for the test, and they had to go home.
Yeah, Pat, I want to ask you a question that Kevin Kiesman brought up to us, and maybe you can do a better job at answering it than Kirk and I did when we were talking with Kevin. What do you say to people when you have your, the biggest name in the sport, like Dale Jr., have a wreck out there? Kevin's question to us is, why don't they use somebody to test these tires other than the stars of the sport? And I said, well, there's something that you have to outweigh there, the competitive advantage, the time you get to spend on the track, figuring out what the new surface is like. There's a trade there, but what would you say to people that are concerned about having the stars of the sport do the tire testing, and what could have happened here last week?
Well, it's a choice that the drivers and the team owners and everybody makes. It's not, Dale Jr. wasn't required to come do the tire test. Rick Hendrick and Dale Jr. and Steve Letarte and I'm sure Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon, they were all involved in deciding who was going to be here. Joe Gibbs is an example. Joe Gibbs Racing brought both Joey Logano and Kyle Busch because of some scheduling issues, and so they both saw time on the track. I think, aside from the competitive issue, we need to get the feedback from the people, from the competitors. If you think about who the customer of the track itself is, just the racetrack surface, it's the drivers.
Right.
The customer of the race is our fans, but the customer of the track is the drivers, and so there's no way for us to get the feedback we need on what we need to do, if there are any changes that need to be made or anything else, unless we've got the customers on the track. And in this case, it's the Sprint Cup drivers.
Right. Kirk?
Pat, you had to be thrilled about the comments that the drivers made, all very positive about the way the track was repaved and reconfigured. Your thoughts about how the drivers viewed the new repave job?
Yeah, it was a great 2 days. I spent more time because I didn't have to worry about fans and everything else, the way I do on a race weekend. I spent more time in the garage than I've ever been able to. And so I really got to talk to a lot of the guys about what they thought about the track and everything else. And, they had the concerns that we expected, which is that on a fresh track, you don't have rubber down, and it makes it hard to run. But they said overwhelmingly they love the new design. They think it's fast. They're convinced that we're going to have great side-by-side racing. They predominantly ran the low line during the test, but that was because that was where everybody was running, and so there was rubber going down, and there was no need to pass. There was no competitive advantage to running anywhere else. And so if there was a problem, if they slipped, if something happened, if they got loose, they had a lot of room to save the car. But we're going to put the Richard Petty driving experience on track to bring in at least a second and maybe a third line before the race. And then we're also looking at what they call a tire monster, which is a device that they use at drag strips to actually force rubber into the track to basically speed the aging process along.
Pat, those tires that we saw originally, Kirk and I thought that was going to be what they were going to use to drag around the track, but that's not the case. Those new tires are down there for the road course, weren't they?
Yeah, all the tires that are in garages C and D are there for the road course. Those are actually the extra tires that aren't part of the tire packs that we're putting on the road course itself. And so, the rubber that we'll put down the track will be racing tires from Goodyear, and they'll probably be a little bit softer compound than they actually use for the race itself. It looks like right now that the Michigan tire, which is what they call the control tire for the test, is the most likely tire for our race, but we don't know yet.
Now, was that the Michigan tire that blew out on Junior's car, though?
I believe it was the control tire, which is my understanding was the Michigan tire. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, describe this.
Go ahead.
This tire monster again that comes out on there. Describe that a little bit more detail. What is
basically there are two kinds of them. One looks like a little bit like a discer that you'd pull behind a tractor. We wouldn't pull it behind a tractor. We'd pull it behind a truck. But if you think about when you're looking out in the field and you see a farmer disking his field, but there are tires and where the discs would be, and they actually sit diagonally like the discs do. And so what you're doing is you're running that tire in the opposite direction from your travel to create as much friction and put as much rubber down as possible. And then the other type of machine is one where you actually cut the sidewall out of the tire and you put a lot of weight on basically a sled that you then pull behind a truck or a tractor, and that happens to be the one that the Chicagoland Speedway has. They use their drag strip, and then that puts rubber down as well. And so they're both equally effective. What we're trying to figure out is which one will work better on our new up to 20-degree banking.
Have they done this at other racetracks besides yourself?
Phoenix did it last year. Phoenix did it before their race. And so it's actually Joey Logano and Kirk Busch both mentioned it to me, and so that's one of the reasons that we're looking at it. We want the drivers to know that we're doing everything possible to make the track as competitive as it can be for the first race. None of them are concerned about the long-term success of the Speedway. They do have some concerns that if we don't do something to put rubber down in the track before they come back for testing, the 2 days before the Cup race and then the race itself, that we might end up with, say just a two-line track. I personally think they're going to run everywhere because the track's designed with the top line to be the fastest. Once they figure that out, that's where they're going to go.
Pat, you had to be thrilled with the people that showed up in attendance out there in the grandstands. Several hundred people showed up, and I guess the great thing that came out of that is not all of those fans were hardcore fans that already had their tickets. There was a lot of fans that were up there taking a look at the track and then made a purchase for tickets. So that's encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, as I said on Tuesday, I think it was, that was really surprising to us because I thought my intuition, which was clearly wrong, was that the only fans that would be out there would be, the really, dyed-in-the-wool NASCAR fans. And, there were a lot of fans up there who were huge racing fans, but they weren't necessarily all customers of Kansas Speedway. And so we saw 2 really good sales days, and I'd love to have a tire test every day if I could deliver those kinds of samples.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual, isn't it? Where I've never heard where a Goodyear tire test where they have loud fans in. Is that normally done at other Goodyear tire tests? Because I've never heard of that before.
I don't know if I can say it's normally done. I know they allowed it at Michigan for their second test this year. I don't know if they allowed it for their first test. Goodyear's, understandably reticent to have people around watching them test their product for the first time on a new surface. But I think it shows the confidence that Goodyear has, that NASCAR has in Goodyear, and that we all have in Goodyear. We're concerned about doing it, and I asked them what I could relate to the test. Was there anything proprietary? And they're not trying to hide anything. They're an open book. Obviously, they're not going to share tire compound material with us or with their competitors. But there's nothing about the test that I know that I can't share.
Well, I know one thing. Kirk and I went out there to film RacinBoys TV. It was remarkable how much banking was in that racetrack. I know that we had some video of me standing out on the track, leaning forward without my hands out, and it might be a little hard you can see it visually as you're up in the grandstands, but it really stands out when you get down there and you stand on the track. It's pretty remarkable how much banking has been added.
Yeah, we've talked about this year, we do the track pass on Sunday mornings, and we've talked about trying to figure out a way to get fans out into the corner, either at 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, and give them an opportunity to really walk up on that banking. It's a half-mile walk. And so we're trying to figure out if many people will do it if we set it up, but I think we are going to try to figure out that opportunity because the front stretch is largely unchanged. The apron after the start-finish line is different. But when you get into the corners and you walk up there, it's a world of difference. And even for people who didn't get a chance to walk on the 15 degrees of banking, they'll feel what the 20 degrees is. And you can feel the difference when you go from 17 up to about the 18 and a half and then up to the 20.
Pat,
obviously the track I wanted to ask you, obviously the track is going to the track record is going to get busted out there. I think they were running 29.90s. I don't know what they ended up. They probably broke the track record on day number 2. I know that day number 1, Matt Kenseth was talking about 29.90s. The track record was by Matt Kenseth, 2005 at 29.85. How much faster do you think they will go than the track record? You got a prediction on that, Pat? I mean, we obviously can't hold you to it, but do you have an idea what you think it might be?
I really don't, and the reason that I don't is that it all depends on the tire. Different tires can produce speeds on our racetrack. They can change the top speed 10 miles an hour by the amount of grip that the car has and its ability, and when you think about lap time, the ability to go through the corner. And so, if they come back with the same tire, with the Michigan tire, I think you're right. I think we'll see a new track record regardless. I just don't know how much faster it will be.
Right.
That's what I would qualify it as because I don't know.
Yeah, Matt Kenseth thought it was going to be around a half a second or better. I'm thinking between a half and maybe a full second almost. So
yeah,
that's going to be interesting to watch.
Steve Letarte thinks it's going to be a lot faster. So,
yeah, interesting.
Pat Warren is joining us. He's the president of Kansas Speedway. What kind of an impact do you expect the road course, that's the other part of this project, made? How much of an impact that'll have on Kansas Speedway?
I think what it's going to do, it's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to introduce or reintroduce the Speedway to portions of the racing community that may have sort of checked out on us. Sports car fans, people who are interested in things other than stock car racing. We've had a lot of the local car clubs reach out to us. Obviously, we're going to run a Grand Am event next year. I think that will be something that brings a lot of people to the track. And I think anytime you can have more activity, more cars on the track, that's a positive thing for us. It helps sell tickets, whether it's to the Grand Am race or to the Sprint Cup nationwide or the truck events or ARCA. It's always good to have cars on the track. It's why we've got a relationship with your petty driving experience, and it's why we're doing everything we can to make it economical for even amateurs to come out and be able to use the road course. You can set that up separately from the oval, and as long as we can figure out a way to do it safely, our goal is to have that used as often as possible.
Pat, do you think there's any chance that you could run something on the oval and the road course on the same weekend so you can kind of cross the interest of fans from both sports and maybe expose them and maybe get them interested like NASCAR fans into road course racing fans into NASCAR and oval track racing. Do you think there's any opportunity to do something like that?
There's a possibility to do that. We could probably do it from a scheduling perspective. The challenge is the logistics of our infield.
Right.
Because if you have a cup race, then you've got people who want to camp on the infield who have been camping on the infield, in our case, in many situations for 12 years. And they want to be down there for the cup race. Well, you can't have anyone camping on the infield if you're running the road course. And so that's the challenge that we look at. And it's not really an issue of how long it takes to turn over the track itself. We've got a temporary crash wall in 1 and 2 that we have to take down, some tire packs we have to move. We don't have this 18-hour transition that Indianapolis has because we built the road course in a way to be able to switch it over quickly. But what we would have is a long time to get it ready for customers. So we don't think it's something that we can do and serve our customers the way we want to. It's probably the best way to say it.
Right. Well, Pat, I guess if people want to get tickets, there's still some available. Tell everybody what they need to do to get a hold of them. I know there's probably going to be a big walk-up crowd. I would recommend to fans do not wait until race day. There might be some tickets available. You can tell us about that. But if I'm a race fan and I'm thinking about purchasing tickets, I'd do it right now. How would they do it?
Yeah, I would absolutely buy them now to get the best price and the best location, if nothing else. And the easiest way to do it is probably to just call 866-460-RACE or go to our website, kansasspeedway.com. Either one will help you. If you're a first-time fan, I would suggest calling in because our ticket service agents will be able to help you figure out the right location for you and your group or your family. If you bought from us before, the website might be just as easy because you'll know where you want to sit and what you want to do. But either one's available. We have races, starting on the 19th and running through the 21st. We've got ARCA Friday night. After qualifying, we've got the nationwide race, Kansas Lottery 300 on Saturday, and then we've got the Hollywood Casino 400 on Sunday. And we're fired up. It's going to be a great weekend. Probably going to be a little bit cooler than normal because we're 2 weeks later, but we think it's going to be fantastic.
Hey, Pat,
I cannot wait.
One final question, Pat. I know you're going to try to give 2013 a chance to kind of let things settle down a little bit, use the road course and whatever, but down the road, future plans on the facility, maybe changing the fan walk area, doing some things. Is that down the road? You still got those plans on the drawing board?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's really an issue. For every time we look at any project, it's how does it benefit the fan experience? How does it make the experience better for the people that come to the racetrack? And how do we pay for it? We've put almost $40 million of our shareholders' money into the Speedway over the last several years. And it's working. It's doing what it needs to do, and we're delivering the results. But we do those things for a reason, and we do them to deliver a return to our shareholders. And so we're in the process right now of figuring out what that experience would be on the infield, and probably the garage area, and how we would change it, how we can get enough people down there, because if we do it, we want to benefit our season ticket holders and our single ticket guests, probably in different ways. But if we can come up with a way to do it and a way to pay for it, we will absolutely do it. And of course, the trick is do all that and try to do it without raising ticket prices, which is our goal. Right. So,
well, you guys have been great at thinking about the fans out there over the years. You always take them into consideration. I'm sure that you'll enhance the experience if you choose to redo the fan walk. That would be a lot of fun, and I'm sure that it will be ahead of its time like it was the day that it was built. A lot of tracks have taken that fan walk and have kind of grown it into their own deal. We know down at Daytona we've seen it, and I'm sure if you decide to reconfigure the fan walk, it's going to be second to none. Pat, thanks so much for being on the show with us. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to it. Can't wait to get out there and see the first race on the pavement, the ARCA race. That's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait. Thanks for being on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me this morning, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Pat.
All right.
All right.
That is Pat Warren, president of Kansas Speedway. And, the thing I like about what Pat's doing out there, of course, Jeff Berger, his predecessor, the same thing, is the fans are number one consideration out there. And, they're always thinking about what can we do to increase the value of their experience. And that's really what it's all about. And if you look at the ticket sales at Kansas Speedway over the last couple of years compared to some of the other facilities around the country, proof's in the pudding right there. They sell tickets.
Yep, I agree, and it's going to be a fantastic show. I am positive of that. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines, 913-3810-810, 913-3810-810. If you want to talk anything about motorsports, we can do so in the last segment of today's show. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Track Talk in a moment.